Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Scott.
I'm Shate, and we're the Hazes.
Welcome to the Love Haze podcast, where we believe that healing and wholeness are not destinations.
That's right. We believe they're a journey. And here on the Love Haze, we talk about how to navigate through it.
Absolutely. So today, we're going to take a deep dive into today's dating culture. Or maybe it's going to be a shallow dive. I may have been a little shade, but I said what I said. All right. Welcome to our Black Love journey. Let's get into this thing.
Let's go.
Let go.
Okay, let me start us off then.
Let go.
We watch a lot of Black Love shows.
We do. I've been coerced into doing this.
Really?
Yeah.
Says the person who also went out last night and told me I bet not continue watching them or move forward without him.
Why you telling people our business?
Right. Anyways, here's the roster. Black Love documentary, which unfortunately is gone off, but excellent show, really great. Look at relationships from all ages, all levels, all shapes, sizes, makes. Love that show so much. There is Love Goals, which only I think had one season, which I really like, with Dr. Spirit. There's Ready to Love, which we watch literally every single episode. Put a ring on it. Love and Marriage, Huntsville, although that's starting to just feel like more drama than it is anything else.
Yeah.
And that's a good bit of them. We started watching The Queen's Court recently.
This week.
And we've watched a lot of content, a lot of minutes spent on watching people choose other people. We also have our own story of how we chose who we chose and how we got to what I say is a fulfilling relationship. I hope you say the same.
Absolutely.
And it's so interesting to me to see how people choose. And to me, it says a lot about them, like where they are in their life. For example, on The Queen's Court, I was so impressed to see how Tamar Braxton has changed. And I watched all of the Braxton Family Values. And she was just so different. She even said it on this first episode. She said she showed up obnoxiously. And she's like, people don't want that. She seems so settled and so calm. And so you can tell she's worked on her healing and she has really come to grips and she's just trying to show up differently. Even same thing with Evelyn Lozado. I didn't really watch Basketball Wives, but I imagine the drink throwing and all that kind of stuff, that she's probably evolved too. And you could tell their energy is very much like, I'm not about to fight over a man. I want this friendship with the ladies to sustain. They're calling out red flags already. Tamar even said something about this person has more work to do. I'm not there. And so I love to talk about it, especially with a male's perspective of how we choose or why we choose who we choose, how that manifests in the relationship. What does that really say about us? And again, this is not a teaching thing. Yes, we have a fulfilling relationship, but we are not here to try to teach you how to get to your person. It's just really more like reflection on what we see in dating culture as portrayed on TV. I will say that. And, just kind of unpacking that. So what are your thoughts on all of it? The shows we watch, what was your approach to dating? Because I know you were out here in these Bumble streets and stuff post-divorce.
I don't care what happens. You're going to find a way to throw that up in there. I love the shows that we watch, honestly. Just I think from the mind of a clinician too, because we'll be looking and just kind of giving I don't diagnose people, I give diagnostic impressions. Think folk may be bordering on some mental health.
That's very true, because I'll be like, what is this, babe? What do they have? You'd be like, I don't have enough information to diagnose them. I'll be
can't do that. I can give you a diagnostic impression. But, I've really been doing some deep research on emotional intelligence, right? And emotional intelligence being our resolve to be able to understand that people are at certain places in their journey.
Yeah.
And the way that I responded when I was 25 to something based on the information that I had then, that'd be different, and how I respond at the age of 45 based on the information that I have.
Hopefully.
And now being able to have the EQ that I have, the emotional intelligence level that I have, I'm able to look at how folks show up on these shows now, and kind of see, maybe where they may have a little bit more work to do, or maybe how they would show up differently. But the emotional maturity is more so what I'm looking at when we're watching the shows. Just
Mm-hmm.
kind of seeing how people show up and what's important to them,
Yeah.
and what they find is valuable and what they say is attractive
Yeah.
in people. So that's always important. So I think when you and I started dating, I had been 20 years of myself like pleasing other people, wanting to be a chameleon,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to believing that really being able to pull a woman was about being able to be whatever that woman said that she needed. Like, you like flowers, I do flowers. You like movies, we going to the movies. You like to eat out, I can cook, I can take you out, high dollar restaurants, whatever it is that you need, I can be it. And that was my game, right? Um, when I met you, there were some things that I wanted in relationship that I wanted to make sure that I communicated, and that was what was important to me, to be able to communicate like the things that I liked.
Mm-hmm.
So I was asking questions around what it is that you enjoyed, and I was also seeing if they, came anywhere close to the things that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And it was more about a measure of like, do we have things in common? Right? Do we have things that we both enjoy?
Mm-hmm.
And at minimum, were you open to the things that I said that I liked?
Mm-hmm.
So it was much different way that I showed up in dating you than I had ever showed up before in life.
I vaguely remember you saying something about, and this was like early on in our communications. Like, I probably was still on the Bumble app. Like, I got off the app, by the way, like a week or two after we met, because not necessarily, I would like to say it was noble, because I had met Scott already and that was it. I was like, this is dumb. I don't want to be on this app. I'm getting off of it. And I told him, if you want to keep talking, here's my number and we can see if it works. But this was early on in our conversations, and I was kind of asking you some things, and I vaguely remember you saying like, well, I don't want to give you all the answers because you might just do it because you have the answers. Like, I want to see like just how you show up, something like that. Vaguely remember that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, and that was my own stuff too, because I knew that I had been that person in the past, and so I didn't want to give out. I wanted genuine connection, and if it was something I was connected to, I didn't want to be. I mean, you get somebody answer to the test,
yeah,
that over 35. If you fail that test, then you're just not that smart.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I really wanted an opportunity to get to know you and see if I liked you, and I also very much wanted someone who was willing to do the work to get to know me and figure out if they liked me.
Yeah. I think I'd love to hear what else was on your list and why it was there. I'm thinking about what we see in these dating shows. So I'm thinking about this most recent season of Ready to Love. A young lady that didn't make it, and I forget her name. She was saying, "Oh, I wanted my person to like have sold 2 businesses." And I was like, that's an interesting thing to put on a list. You know what I mean? And the whole time, all the men have been giving her feedback like, you seem like you're a gold digger. You just want somebody after the money. And up until that point, she hadn't presented that way to me. I was like, no, she actually just kind of knows what she wants. And she's trying to ensure that she gets what she actually doesn't want to settle. But then I was like, well, maybe she is a little bit like, not that that's a gold digger, but you're actually looking for a specific type of person. And that there's nothing wrong with that. But also, do you realize what you get on the other end? That a person that has sold 2 businesses, is it going to give you, I guess, the emotional, mental, spiritual connection that you might want? And maybe that person doesn't want it. And so I'll speak for myself. At the point where we met, I very clearly knew I wanted someone, those 3 things I just said. I wanted a physical connection, I wanted mental connection, I wanted to be able to have conversation, and I wanted a spiritual connection. I wanted values to be aligned on those levels. And this is someone who I, in the past, had a list. I was being I had good intentions in that the whole, like, write the vision, make it plain, like write down what you want on a list and pray over it. I did that before when I was younger, to the point where I was like, oh, I want them to have a degree and I want them to have good credit and I want, so educated at a certain level. and have this types of experiences. And I was very specific in that way. And I got that in a person and it felt awful. I got my list person and it was just no peace there. Yeah. He was like arrogant and he was like looking for something. And so that's where the arrogance came from. And he just wasn't settled in the spirit. And he just wanted to argue and fight. And it lasted clearly like 2 to 3 weeks. But that taught me like, oh, the list actually doesn't mean shit. Like, that doesn't mean anything. You could get your list, as my grandmother says it. She was like, you could have all the bells and whistles and they could just be beating me on the other end of it. And I was like, okay, make it plain then. She was like, bells and whistles don't mean nothing, you know?
Yeah. I think also like dating experience and the things that we sometimes haven't had inform the things that we are looking for.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't always know what that looks like. And sometimes in an unhealthy way, we say, okay, so I wasn't specific enough. Mm-hmm. So I want to have this person who has had this kind of experience. And you get the person that has had that kind of experience, but they don't have this other thing.
Yeah.
And so depth to list, I think. I think there are some things that we should be checking for, but, you know, I think the freedom to get to know people and to be able to communicate what it is that you want and desire in relationship gives the opportunity to have people understand and maybe like you enough, you know, to want to show up in that way, to love you in a way that you desire to be loved. There is no substitute, I think, for communication and for a person who enjoys you enough to learn your love language because you communicated it and to make a conscious decision that I want to show up for you in this way. A lot of times it seems like people are looking for folks who already do that, like just in general. And to some degree, I think that's okay.
Yeah.
Because you're comfortable doing this because it's something that you already do. But there is no substitute, I think, for individuality. And the thing that I love most about us and about the dating experience with you was that you kind of showed up in the space and was like, oh, that's how you want to be loved. I'm trying to learn more about that. What does that look like for you? Because one thing about Shatay Edwards at the time, you know, ask all the questions, right? And not only ask all the questions, you're going to ask, well, what does that look like for you?
It's clarity, sir.
Yeah. And as much grief as I have given you about that, it is that you were inquisitive enough to want to know, like, yeah, I do this thing, but what does it look like for you? You know, because it's different. You can say that I want somebody who is considerate. So what does consideration mean for you? Right? Because we all come from different upbringings, different backgrounds. And then if I say I'm a considerate person and consideration looked very different for you in Houston coming up with your parents than it looked for me, then I may still not meet your need.
Yeah.
And then you disappointed on a different level because you said you were considerate. Well, I am, based on what I know about consideration. Right? So, you know, it's a different groove in being able to get to know people and really understanding what it is that people want, desire, and need, and whether or not you can meet that want, desire, and need in relationship.
Yeah.
And a lot of times on these shows, I don't know if people really, you know, take that deep of a dive.
I wonder if they have the self-awareness to do that. I'm thinking, so I had not seen much of Nivea before, like on television. I just know her from the song, okay, right? But seeing her and what's important to her, it seems like she's really interested in having fun and sexual chemistry, which is fine. And I'm also wondering, like, is that how you've always been? And if so, has it worked for you? Like, if you want something different, don't you have to do something different? You know what I mean? And so it just feels like, again, we're only one episode in. It feels like Tamar really is like, I want something different, so I'm trying something different. Same thing with Evelyn Lozado. She's like, the dude was all presenting, showing his representative, and she like New York, so I'm gonna be New York, like all of that. And then dude was joking with him, like just kind of jonesing him just a little bit for a hot second. Dude flipped out.
The
And
real
she was
him showed
like,
up.
red flag.
All right.
This brother was gone off there. So it was just, I wonder if people are taking enough time to take stock into like, why am I making this choice? Or to this point, why does it feel like home? One of the things about you early on was like you felt like home. It felt like you had always been here, which happened to work out for me, because what I meant by that was like it felt calm and peaceful, comfortable. I don't know if anyone's ever like visited my home, like, and I think this is one of your complaints. We will sit on the couch, sit down somewhere and watch TV and fall asleep. And it's just like a peace there. Same thing with my grandmother's house. You immediately walk in there and it's just like, I want to go to sleep, have a drink and go to sleep immediately. There's just a calmness there. And there was something about the music we were listening to and the conversations we were having. It just felt like ease and peace in the best ways. And for some people, when they say it feels like home, it's like a trauma response or something. Like
people trying to get far away from home.
Exactly. Yeah. And so if you anchored to the chaos of what you knew when you were growing up, then that's not necessarily a good thing. But I guess what I'm trying to get to is like, why do you think people choose based on, I want to say maybe more superficial things, it feels like the two businesses, like what do you think prompts people to choose what they choose?
What they want.
But what deeper than that? If we're trying to deep dive, like why do people want what they want?
And this is why I said shallow. Also, because for me, it really ain't on a lot of these shows that we watch. It's really not that deep. They're not really taking a deep dive. And I preface this by saying that based on my experience, you have to dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
Right. It is not that you can say what it is that you like and give the answer to the test, and then the person say, "Oh, okay, that's what I do." Right. And you'd be like, "Oh my God, that's it. That's the sign that I needed."
Mm-hmm.
No, you have to be willing to like see this person when they're angry. Like, oh boy, it just came out all of a sudden. And I was telling you off the rip, like I didn't like him because the minute she said that she was from New York, he like developed this New York accent and he spoke with it every time he saw her. And then the moment that reality struck, like he showed up, he's ready to pop up, he's ready to fight this man about one comment. And I was like, okay, that's who he really is. Right. And I don't know that all of us really like who we really are enough to like show up in spaces and really be ourselves. And so there is the struggle for most of us between who we really are in the moment and our ideal self. My ideal self may be this person that is fun and outgoing and loves to go out and is joking and playful and really enjoys experiencing new things. That may be my ideal self, but who I really am is more of a homebody. You know, I really like to go places. I really hate dating. You know, all of those things. And if we show up in spaces as somebody that we're really not, yeah, who is the person really getting to know? And not only are we getting ready to disappoint that person after this 3-week show is over, you know, we're getting ready to disappoint ourselves too, because the person that you've been putting on for is going to eventually meet who you really are. And then you're disappointed because you couldn't maintain this ideal self or this pretend person. And then they're disappointed too because you ain't really who you said you were.
You ain't who you supposed to be.
You heard me? So let me ask you, what is the haze of dating based on aligned values? Because I really think what we're getting down to is, and I think we frequently find ourselves back here, like around this conversation around alignment, right? Around values being aligned, desires being aligned. It always seems to come back to alignment. So, you know, what's the haze of dating based on aligned values?
Well, hopefully, I will say, I hope someone is first at the point where they are looking for values. Like that's what they're looking for, shared values, because I believe that's what sustains a relationship. Beauty, like looks will fade. Lots of things will fade. People will change. We're going to evolve. who I am 5 years ago, 6 years ago is not who I am now. Same for
Mm-hmm.
you. So when all of that is evolving, do we still have the same shared values? I think is what sustains any relationship, friendship, like whatever. The haze of that, and I'll speak from my own personal experience, the haze was, I kind of don't want to say the weight, but I'm going to say the weight because I was not the person who was just dating just to have a warm body. I couldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I didn't like
Mm-hmm.
you, I can't fake that. So I didn't continue to go on dates if I wasn't feeling the person.
Mm.
I just didn't do it. And so if there was no interest there, if there was no connection, if there was no alignment, I spent a lot of time doing my own thing. And at one point in my life, I want to say probably early to mid 30s or early 30s, I sort of felt that as a problem. I'd be like, oh, all my friends are getting engaged and married. I'm forever the bridesmaid. When is it going to be my turn kind of thing? And I just had a problem with it. But then at a certain point, I was like, you know what? I'm going to just date myself. I'm going to do things that I enjoy. I'm going to start tackling my bucket list. If love comes along, it'll come. And so I got about the business of just loving myself, and I attracted the love, as woo as it sounds. But the haze for me was like, I gotta wait for somebody to have my same values, and I'll hold myself accountable. I didn't necessarily always put myself in spaces to meet somebody because honestly, dudes aren't necessarily coming up to you in the same ways. But I was a homebody, I still am. You know, I like to be on the couch, and so I wasn't going a ton of places to meet somebody.
Right.
And as a result, took me forever to find you on the internet. You know, so. Just that was a bit of a haze. What do you think?
I think it's a couple of different things, but I will say that dating based on aligned values is like it leaves room for you to be rejected and for you to experience rejection, right? And so often, especially being a man, just this idea of like being whatever the person wants you to be sometimes negates like inserting the things that are valuable to you. And I had to learn to date from a standpoint of like wanting partnership and not wanting to just be somebody that somebody wanted. And for a very long time in my dating life and you know on into my 30s and into my late 30s, I just prided myself on being someone that people wanted to be around and to be with. I remember going to homecomings and people like, "You were supposed to be my husband. You just was this in college and you was that in college, and you know we should have been together." And it's because of and those people were looking for the Scott that was in college. That was like, "Girl, whatever you need, I'll do it. Whatever you want, I do. I just want to love you the right way." You know, those types of things.
No, you were supposed to wait for them to stop dating whoever they were dating at the time and just be
Listen,
available. Is that also
let me
the
tell you how many
criteria?
folk done roll up on me with some baby strollers talking about we were supposed to be together. No, hell, we wasn't supposed to be together, but that's a different story for a different day. But it is that if I am to like put my values and the things that are important to me first, then that means that I'm not taking that, right? I'm not going to just be in this space to just be with somebody and not have a warm body. And somebody may reject me because I'm not what it is that they're looking for as well. And
that could be anyway, though. Like, even if
it
it's
could
not
be
values aligned.
Yeah, but that was the haze for me, right? I wanted to, no matter what, be somebody that somebody wanted. And some of that was, a lot of that was my own shit, my own self esteem, the way and the value that I had put on myself, the way that I viewed myself, my own lack of self worth. I just wanted to be chose. And it didn't matter what I needed to do to be the person that you chose. I was willing to do that. And I thought at one point I was willing to do that for the rest of my life, as long as the person chose me, that I would somehow be able to be enough and do enough so that they would choose me.
But you have to choose you first.
Yeah, but I had to choose me first. And a part of that was being able to say that I don't care if it's nobody, right? I will be by myself if I cannot have what it is that I want and desire and need in relationship. And that was a haze.
What was the shift for you? I know what it was in your last relationship, but I guess how did you get to that point where you were like, actually, this is what I need and I'm willing to wait for it?
I think it was a shift that happened just in general in all of my relationships. And I will forever attribute that to, starting therapy and being able to recognize my own worth. Even in relationship with my family, I had always like whatever they want and they need, like I would silently be pissed off about the thing, but do it anyway, because I believe that that's what I needed to do, to be the dependable one in my family dynamic, and I believed in my intimate partnerships that that's what I needed to do in order to be the one that this person would choose at all times. I needed to be whatever they needed so they would not choose anybody else, and it was just number one, it was unhealthy, it was unsustainable, it was all those things. And more than anything, it was unfucking fulfilling for me, because that meant that I didn't need it. If I get to be everything to everybody else, then who fills me up? Right.
Okay.
And there was this idea that I didn't need to be filled. Like I got my joy from being whatever everybody else needed. And now there is this Scott that you've gotten to experience. Sometimes that you don't be with that shit, but it is that my cup is full and I pour from my overflow. Right. Not that I'm not operating from deficit anymore. And as much as I want to be the husband that you want and you need and you desire, I pour from my overflow, and I am full. I am a whole person already. And then we are able to meet in partnership because you show up and you are the wife that I want and I need and I desire as a whole person yourself. We're not consistently trying to pour into each other to meet some deficit. So now you're a little bit more full, but I'm at deficit. So now it's 40-60 and it's 80-20, like it's 100-100. And then, we're pouring from the overflow. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. Not always something that, it ain't always sunshine and rainbows. You still piss me off and I piss you off. And we have to have conversations about how to kind of maintain our equilibrium and stay there. But I think that it leaves space to be able to do that and have some of those difficult conversations that say, at minimum, I ain't going nowhere. Like we having this conversation because I'm staying. You stuck with me forever, and I love you. And we're having the conversation so that I can learn how to love you better.
How do we navigate these hazes?
I think a willingness to be self-aware and to operate from a space of self-awareness, to be able to, number one, know what it is that you want and need and desire, to be able to communicate those things, and then to go about the business of doing it and finding a partner who is willing to do that with you and accept that that is who you are. Someone who's willing to grow with you and to grow through it. What do you think?
Yes. So I agree. Know what you want and be able to choose accordingly. So if I know that I just wanted a relationship that felt connected, then I have to choose that. And it can't be that, well, this is what's choosing me right now. Because I've had someone say that to me, be like, well, what do you want? I had a friend once and was kind of entertaining several dudes, which was not uncommon. And, people like to have rosters, and
Come on, rosters.
that was a thing and probably still is for some people. And she'd be like, this person said this and this person did this and this person shows up this way. And I'd be like, well, what is it that you want? Like, what about what you want? She was like, well, does it matter what I want? Because like this is a person who's choosing me, and I was kind of like, so what if they're
Yeah.
what if they're choosing you? Like, do you want to be chose by them? Like, is this what you're choosing also?
Hmm.
And it was kind of like I'm gonna resign to whoever's giving me this attention in this
Hmm.
way, and I'm trying to be sensitive of how I say this because I understand. I really, really do understand that some people crave attention and get lonely easily,
Hmm.
and I that's not my experience. So I'm trying to like
Hmm.
have empathy for people who do feel loneliness more than I do. And on the same at the same time, it just kind of feels like you got to be willing to choose like actually what you want.
Yeah.
And if what you want is not choosing you right now in the same way, maybe it's like it's going to show up in a different way, in a different version, in a different person. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm using a lot of words. That is why I went from having this list of very like specifics,
Hmm.
educated in this way, credit in this way, makes this type of money in this way. I went from specifics to something that was broad enough that allowed me to know that what I'm feeling, I'm looking for what it should feel like.
Yeah.
And for me, the bonus was that you had just about everything that was on my list, anyways. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? But instead, I was focusing on how it felt. Does this feel the way I want it to feel? The package of it will be different. I'll be honest, like, even though, yes, you had a certain level of education and experiences and exposure to things, I didn't set out to like date someone who was going through divorce. So when
Hmm.
it presented itself, I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, that's not what I had imagined for myself. That's not what I thought it would be. And then I had to like sit back, talk it over with my wiser counsel, and be like, but does it feel like what I wanted it to feel like?
Yeah.
And the answer for me was yes. And so I chose that instead.
Hmm.
So I feel like what I'm saying is a little bit of the haze and also how to kind of navigate it. I just want to be honest about like what feelings can come up in the process of it.
Yeah.
And also you still have to make the choice for what you're trying to move towards.
Yeah, and I think the last part that you said is really important. Like we all have to make a choice, for what we're trying to move towards. Um, I think that what we want and what we desire and our willingness to get to that
Mhm.
inform the way that we show up in relationship, right? So to me, based on my value system, if I don't want to do the hard work of having to narrow it down, then I'll have a roster.
Mm.
I'll have a woman who doesn't mind paying for things and willing to take me out, but is maybe not the prettiest.
Mm.
And then I'll have the pretty one who I got to take out,
Mm.
and then I'll have, the one who is most emotionally supportive, who doesn't mind staying on the phone with me all night and all of those things and listening to my problems and whoop de whoop de whoop. And I can put this roster together and maybe they'll equal up to one
Mhm.
woman, the woman that
Mhm.
I really want.
Mhm.
Or I can go about the work of, you know, dating and finding the person who most aligns with my values
Mhm.
and being able to tell the people who don't, like, this ain't it. I mean, one of the struggles that I had when I was dating was I was really clean this last time. I was really keen on being able to be like, hey, we've been out on a date or two and this ain't it.
Mhm. What you say? What words you use?
That was just it.
You said
Mm,
this ain't it?
yeah. Like we've
Mhm.
been out on a couple dates. This has been cool. It's not what I'm looking for, you know? And
Mhm.
being able to like set expectations. I'm big now on being like I'm setting the table. Like understand that this is dating for me and what in my value system, I believe that dating is to see if you want to move forward with the person. It
Exactly.
ain't gotta be no fallout. You ain't gotta
Mhm.
get pissed off. I ain't got to block you. Oh, nothing like we went out on some dates. This ain't it for me. I wish you well. I can't tell you the number of friends who were trying to set me up with their friends who had just ugly attitudes. And they knew their friends had ugly attitudes, but what they knew of me was like this person that was easygoing, I'll probably be a good fit. Girl, you
Mhm.
need to go out with Scott. And Scott wasn't what they remember from school and they trying to set their friend up with. And I was like, nah, Shawty, your friend ain't it. Like that's not the groove, but we can date. We can date based on like this roster system and just kind of getting what we need in the moment, or we can really like be seeking alignment. What I understand about my friends, the people that I love most in my circle, is that everybody is at a different stage in their life. I don't have no judgment for you for wherever you are in life. If our value systems don't line up as it relates to the way that we date, that's okay. Live your life the way you want to live your life. You know, nothing here. All I ask is that we make a conscious effort to be honest with whoever it is that we are, in relationship with, or whoever we're dating. And I understand that people just have different resolves, different stages of change that they may be in. And people a lot of times are making choices towards whatever it is that they value in that moment. And if you value just having a warm body, you will make choices towards just having a warm body. If you value just having somebody to talk to, you will make choices towards just having somebody to talk to.
And that's it.
All right. I'm not about to fall out with you because I think you should have done better. Like, that ain't it. I don't got no judgment for you, but there will be a conversation.
I hear that.
So, do we need to say this part? What do you think you've learned about dating in general? Do you think there's more to add there?
I want to say this. Okay. I think that, one, you get what you believe you deserve. So I think about friends, family members who double back to people who've
spin the block,
shown you who they are and how they show up in the world. That doesn't mean that people don't change, but this person has shown you who they are, and yet and still you double back and you choose them again. Says to me that that's what you believe that you deserve, or that's what you believe that's all you can get right now. And so mine as well. You get what you believe you deserve, and also you get what you choose. Like, just, there's not more to say there. Like, what you choose is what you get. And so just be mindful. Like, essentially, I guess what I'm trying to say is whatever's on the inside is what's going to come out. So be superficial. You've got like shallow values. That's going to show up in your relationship. I think that when it comes to things like struggle love, people are constantly at odds with one another, trying to control the other person to be how they want them to be, or people who take on projects like that. But like, for what though? Why? That's exhausting.
Yeah, but it is exhausting for us based on our value system.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
And so I always want to make sure that we zoom out and just understand that, my value system ain't your value system. If that's how you want to live your life, then it's cool.
Can't do it.
But what I won't do is have exhaustive conversations with a person about, like, I was the victim in this because this person doesn't line up with my values, and then you spin the block and go back to them. And that's not the conversation that we had. So now I got to spend more exhaustive hours about how you're the victim in this situation. So at that point, you're no longer a victim. This is a choice you're making. And I'm not going to be a part of this discussion and discourse all the time about how the person's so wrong when you're choosing the person over and over again. Because real change is in changed behavior.
Yeah.
And people do not do things that do not work. So if I'm rewarded with your love when I do this thing that you say doesn't work for you, but I still get rewarded with your love, then there's really no incentive for me to change. So your language then to me has to change to be like, okay, that's really what I like. You got to stop lying and be like, oh, they did me so wrong because you full of shit. They didn't do you wrong. They did you right. Because they got your love that was the combination to that lock, and that's really what it is. So not imposing my value system, but you also not going to be able to come in here and tell me that they did you wrong when you've been allowing that this entire time. You can't expect change behavior when you've said, hey, I welcome it.
Sound like you're speaking from experience there, brother. Lived experience is coming off, seeping through your pores at this moment. What's the music for this moment? How does it feel?
My music for the moment is booed up.
Ba-da.
No.
Da-da-da. Oh no. Anthony David then.
Yes.
Oh.
Anthony David booed up.
We talked about this and I was like, LMA booed up. You're like, yeah.
I don't remember saying that to you.
Sir.
That's what you wrote. That's not right though.
We're supposed to be loving each other, something.
Oh my God, this is a travesty.
We're supposed to be.
So Anthony David was a song that I used to play when we were going out, when I was trying to convince you that we were supposed to be together. I think I was trying to get you to move in with me or something like that. And you was not studying that shit. You was like, I'm not living with no man until I'm married or I got a ring on my finger. And I would be playing that song. We supposed to be booed up.
Yeah,
there you
go. And it's a great song to step to. Also, love that song. I chose for this conversation Tamar Braxton Change just because I want to throw some love away and let her know I see her. Like I just the way she showed up. Even she was on the Breakfast Club the day after we watch that first episode, and she's just so different, and I really applaud her growth. That's a beautiful thing. And she's got a song called Changed, and I thought it was really talking about her changing and evolving and choosing differently. The song is actually about getting in relationship with someone and then they change, so their representative is love bombing you at the beginning, and all of a sudden it switches up, and so it's just talking about that dynamic, but it does fit with the conversation in terms of
it's pretty good song too.
Yeah, that whole SWV Rain sample is really dope. And I would like to add another song that popped in my spirit as we were talking. The Brat. I wonder if that's her song, but there was a song from back in the day. It was actually in my freshman step show, I think. But it's like, that's what I'm looking for. Have you heard it? That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the Brat song.
Or is she on it? She's on it for somebody.
Remix or something like that.
That's what I'm looking for. I feel like this just needs to be added because we're talking about choosing and getting chose. So,
what you be on?
Anyways, if you are listening, watching, tuning in from YouTube, make sure you like, follow, subscribe. Click that subscribe button. You'll get notifications every time we drop new episodes. If you are joining us from wherever we are in the podcast universe, all the platforms, rate us, review, follow, subscribe, all the things. More importantly, if you've made it to this point in the conversation, thank you for rocking with us. We appreciate you. Let us know in the comments or drop an email at thelovehaze@gmail.com. Let us know what you want to talk about. What are your thoughts? What's come up for you as you've dated? What challenges do you have? How are you navigating it? We'd love to hear from you. And like we always say, life is going to life. Life will always present you with the haze.
Absolutely.
So we have everything that we need within us to navigate through it.
Absolutely. And the most important thing is you're not alone. Join us, and we're going to take this journey together.
That's right.
We appreciate y'all. See y'all next time. Peace. Cheers.